Oh look, it's nighttime, which is perfect to talk about Layla because she's a sleepy weirdo. What is up, Scyushi Squad? We are back in some more Genshin Impact. Today we're going to be talking about the new 4-star character Layla, which is going to be scheduled for version 3.2, which is going to end up releasing November 2nd. So for those of you that just want the information and want to get out of here as soon as possible, here's the Ascension card. I'll have a download link in the description to where you can end up just downloading it and checking it out, blah, blah, blah. Generally speaking, you are going to be able to prepare some of the resources for Layla, but ultimately you will not be able to get some of them. So there's going to more particularly be the Scaramouche weekly boss material. We don't know which material she uses yet, just because the update hasn't actually hit, and you know, we don't really have any of that information on Honey Impact or whatever. But generally speaking, you'll be able to get pretty much everything else, and she is actually shaping up to be a pretty powerful character even for a 4-star. It's quite surprising. Now the thing is, you will be able to kind of get ready for Layla before she ends up actually getting into the game, because she is going to end up being part of the secondary phase banners. So this is going to end up being the first phase banners when the update ends up hitting, and then after, you know, a couple weeks, we're going to end up having these other rerun banners, and Layla is going to end up being a 4-star Cryo sword user that is going to be available in those banners with an increased rate. Generally speaking, she seems to be pretty dang powerful for a 4-star character. If I had to put any comparison to how her playstyle is, she seems like a combination between Diona and Ganyu. So you can already kind of put together just how powerful that could be. But anyways, let's get into it. So her elemental skill ability is going to be Knights of Formal Focus. So it puts forth a shield known as the Curtain of Slumber, which deals area of effect cryo damage. The Curtain of Slumber's damage absorption is based off of Layla's max HP and absorbs cryo damage with 250% effectiveness. When the shield is deployed, Layla will have cryo applied to her briefly. So make sure that you're not wet, because otherwise you're gonna freeze yourself. Night stars and shooting stars. So while the Curtain of Slumber is active, it will create one night star that will be attached every every 1.5 seconds. When a character protected by this shield uses an elemental skill, 2 night stars will be created. Night stars can be created once every 0.3 seconds in this manner. A maximum of 4 night stars can be accumulated at one time. Once the Curtain of Slumber has accumulated all 4 night stars, there are opponents nearby, these night stars will transform into homing shooting stars that will be fired off in sequence, dealing cryo damage to any opponents hit by it. If the Curtain of Slumber's duration ends or it is destroyed, the night stars will disappear. If they are already being fired off as shooting star is going off, it will last until this wave of shots ends. So basically, if the shield ends up ending prior, but you are still in the middle of having the stars shoot, it'll wait for the stars to shoot, and then it'll end up disappear. New night stars cannot be created until the previous waves of shooting stars has been fired completely, so that you can't overstack them, which would have actually been hilarious. It's a pretty cool ability, and generally speaking is going to be very, very helpful as a support DPS. Moving on to her ultimate ability, Dream of the Star Stream Shaker. So unleashes a celestial dream sphere that constantly fires starlight slugs at opponents within its area of effect, dealing cryo damage to those opponents. When a starlight slug hits, it will generate 1 night star for nearby curtains of slumber. Each curtain of slumber can gain 1 night star in this way every 0.5 seconds. So that's on top of just using elemental skill of other characters. So once again, she's going to end up being a very, very heavy hitting DPS support. Now, the thing that's cool about her ultimate ability is, as you can see, it basically is a Ganyu ultimate ability where it covers a very wide radius. However, the shots are actually going to be homing, unlike Ganyu's icicles that just kind of drop down randomly, hitting wherever they feel like. So then there's going to end up being her passive abilities. So her first passive is when Layla crafts character talent materials, she has a 10% chance to receive double the product. And then the second passive is while the Curtain of Slumber is active, the Deep Sleep effect will activate each time the Curtain of Slumber gains 1 night star. So this will end up giving you the shield strength of a character under the effect of Curtain of Slumber is increased by 6%. And the effect can have a maximum of 4 stacks and persist until Curtain of Slumber disappears. So that's not going to last very long, but it is going to end up being a pretty decent shield. And then the other passive is the damage dealt by shooting stars fired by Knights of Formal Focus is increased by 1.5% of Layla's max HP. So you basically are going to end up building her the same as Zhongli. And then there's going to end up being her constellations. So her C1 is the shield absorption of the Curtain of Slumber generated by Knights of Formal Focus is increased by 20%. Pretty nuts. Additionally, when unleashing Knights of Formal Focus, she will generate a shield for any nearby party members who are not being protected by a Curtain of Slumber. This shield will have 35% of the absorption of the normal Curtain of Slumber, lasts 12 seconds, and will absorb cryo damage, 250% effectiveness, which is hilarious because that is actually a very high constellation for Zhongli that makes it so that when you use your ultimate ability, it casts a shield on all of your teammates, and it seems like she just has it in her C1 where you can already end up putting shields on your characters, which is kind of frustrating. They like to reuse a lot of these mechanics for other characters down the line, and the power creep is real. Anyways, her C2. So when shooting stars from the Knights of Formal Focus strike opponents, they will each restore 1 energy to Layla. Each shooting star can restore energy to her in this manner once. Her C3 is of course going to end up making it so that her E ability is going to end up having the increased levels, and then her C5 makes it so that when Knights of Formal Focus starts to fire off shooting stars, it will grant all nearby party members the Dawn Star effect, causing their normal and charged attack damage to increase based on 5% of Layla's max HP. Dawn Star can last up to 3 seconds and will be removed 0.05 seconds after dealing normal or charged attack damage. So basically you just get to do 1 quick flourish and then it's gone. But that's still going to end up being a pretty good ability just because it's going to constantly be going on your character. And then her C5 makes her ultimate have a couple extra levels, and then her C6, shooting stars from Knights of Formal Focus deal 40% increased damage, and Starlight Slugs from her ultimate ability deal 40% increased damage as well. Additionally, the interval between the creation of Night Star via the Knight of Formal Focus is decreased by 20%, meaning that you can end up having more stars generated quicker, which, good God. The constellations on this 4-star. Hi, puppy. So the stats that you're going to go for her is basically going to be the same as I have on my Zhongli, outside of the fact that you're going to end up having the cryo damage buff instead of geo damage. And of course, the weapons that you would end up using for her are going to end up being swords instead of a spear, but you could end up using all sorts of different options. Generally speaking, I don't have a crap ton of 5-star swords and stuff. So, you know, usually I end up using a lot of 4 stars. So you can end up using Festering Desire, Black, you know, and then there's also going to end up being the one that gives the crit damage bonus, Elemental Mastery. It's kind of up to you, but generally speaking, I usually will end up using ones that end up increasing crit rate or crit damage, just because even on support characters, that pretty much always ends up just making things a lot easier for you because you deal a lot more damage. And then for the artifact set, that of course is going to end up being the Cryo set. So the Blizzard Strayer set, which ends up having the 2-piece bonus of giving cryo damage bonus. And then when a character attacks an opponent affected by cryo, their crit rate is increased by 20%. If the opponent is frozen, crit rate is increased by an additional 20%. I mean, there are other options that you can end up using on her. Obviously, you could end up using some of the HP sets, some of the ones that end up giving you a little bit more defense, and so on and so forth. I do think that as far as the artifact sets are concerned, you're going to end up using probably a max HP Sans, unless you want to use her more primarily as damage rather than just support DPS. Then you could use attack percentage, and then otherwise this instead of Geo would end up being cryo damage, and then of course the hat would end up either being crit rate or crit damage respectively. Maybe you could mix it up and have some more HP on her if you want to just 100% use her for a shield rather than actually dealing any damage. As far as the talents are concerned, frankly speaking, I would probably level up her E, her ultimate, and then her base attack last, if even bothering with her base attack, because generally speaking, she's going to shine as a character that isn't in your party, thus a support DPS. So you're going to pop her out, use her ult, use her shield, and then swap to anybody else. Now, I'm not saying that you can't still use her as a DPS and just generally speaking work on her normal attack, but for the most part, that's how I would end up building her, is just all in with her shield and then maybe her ult to complement that. And that's basically how I do it, everybody. So thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate it and hope you enjoyed. Smash like, sub for more, buy the merch you want to support the channel, and have a wonderful day, everybody.